Hello everyone, welcome to Skillease Academy. Today we are going to cover the topic on introduction to relational databases. Let's see the instruction for today. So before we start, let me just introduce myself. My name is Girish Kovilkar. I'll be your instructor for today. I have over 16 plus years of extensive experience in data analytics, engineering, warehousing across various industries. I am specialized in handling data with technologies like SSRS, SQL, Power BI, ADF, Data Fabric, and so on. You can find my details on my LinkedIn on the given screen. So let us see what we are going to cover today on the lessons. So last week, what we have done is we have seen the introduction to SQL, about the history of the SQL and how it got evolved and standardized. Today, we are going to cover the relational databases, the important concept of SQL. So, let us see what we are going to cover today in today's topic. So, first of all, we will see introduction to relational databases. Then we will see why relational databases are important. We will see some of the basics of relational databases. Then we will see the significance of keys, that is primary key and foreign key, in order to maintain the relations. Later on, we will see some of the database concept and structure. And finally, what we are going to do is look into the relationship in the relational databases. And then we will conclude our session for today. So, to start with, what relational database is? So, relational database is nothing but the type of database that stores and provides access to data point related to one another. So, for example, all the data of a particular objects is stored in a table. A table is a collection of related data entry and it consists of rows and columns. So for instance, you might have a customer ID, name, and contact information for a customer table. Similarly, rows and columns represent each data in for a particular object. So column specify a specific attribute of a object. So for example, if you are storing customer information in the customer table, you might store specific attribute like the name, the email address. So that will be the attribute stored in the column. So think of an Excel or Google Sheet where the data is spread across rows and columns where each rows define a unique value or a unique attribute in a column, and in each row you will find multiple values of that particular entity. So how keys are helpful? So there are mainly two types of keys which are really required for a relational database, which is primary key and foreign key. So those are the keys which helps the data to interrelate each other. We will cover this in the upcoming slides. So first of all, we need to see why the relational database is so important. So there are multiple factors which provides the relational database to be important. First is the data integrity and accuracy. So relational database enforce the data integrity rules, ensuring the accuracy and consistency of data throughout the constraint and relationship. So we are not going to see the constraint in this particular session, but we are going to cover the relationships in the later slide. Second, flexibility and scalability. So you might see that some organization will have lesser amount of data, while some organization might have a larger amount of data. So based on their need, the database can be flexible to scale enough as per the organization's need. Second, Third, the complex queries. So when you store the data in the relational database, the SQL server or SQL querying language helps to retrieve and manipulate the data in the relational database, which is very powerful way for interacting a huge amount of data. Then a transactional management. So transactional management means an asset property, which is atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability, which are the crucial for reliable transactional processing. So any of the OLTP system will have to support asset transactions. So why this particular relational database is so important? It is also important because it has been used in various industry. So for example, in financial institutions like banks or credit union, they used to store the data of a customer record, their financial reporting, and also they manage the accounting information for a particular customer, how many accounts they have, how many transactions they are doing. So all are aligned to that particular customer with the help of relational database. Second, healthcare. So if you have seen, many of the healthcare organization has a relational database in place, maintaining the patient record, appointment, billing, and medical history of a patient. This helps them to relate the particular patient history across multiple diseases or across multiple time frame. Then in retail industry, what we can achieve with the relational database is the inventory tracking. So it manages the stock at a low level, at very granular level, that whenever the stock is gone out of the warehouse or out of the shop or out of the particular commercial place, there is a threshold which is maintained for a particular stock. If it goes down, automatically you can reorder the quantity. So it is helpful for retails in form of inventory tracking. It can be also used for, having a sales transaction or customer loyalty program. Then in education industry, we can we can have the relational databases to maintain the student record, maintain the courses, maintain the grades across the whole curriculum of a student. Similarly, it has also used in telecom as well as e-commerce industry in the similar manner. And that's the reason relational database is so important in these days. So to deep dive into, let us understand step by step of the main objects of relational database. So in the start, we said the tables. So what is table? Table is nothing but a collection of related data that represent a particular entity. Like we said, a customer. We can have a customer as a table. We can have a product as a table. We can have an order as a table. So think any kind of entity in your mind that could represent as a table. You can have a vehicle as a table. You can have a, a service as a table. So let's say, for example, you are providing services, right? So that could be also stored in a master table where multiple services are placed and its category can be then defined. Similarly, table consists of multiple rows. So what does row defines in a relational database? So a row is also known as a tuple or record. It is horizontal entity of a table that contains data for each column of a table. For example, we have a customer table. So we are storing customer ID as one, customer name, first name as John, last name as a Doi, and email as a john.doi@example.com. You can also store phone number of the customer. Then the next element comes is a column. So column stores the attribute or a field value of an particular entity. So let's say, for example, you have a customer table which has now five attributes. So it has a name, it has a last name, it has an email address, it has a age, it has a physical address. Now you can have many more attributes of that particular customer, like what is the birthday, what is the frequent thing where he goes. That also you can maintain. So in this particular example, we are displaying the product information. So if you see, we have two different product, and each line denotes one product information. So in row 1, we have 101 as a product ID, laptop as a product name, and price and quantity are mentioned. Similarly, 102 is a second product. We have smartphone, and the price and quantity are mentioned. So all those horizontal thing are the rows where individual entities data has been stored, whereas all common attribute of that entities are stored in column, like product name, price, quantity, email address, or minimum quantity stock. That can be also stored over here. Now let us see what is the significance of a primary key. So primary key is a unique identifier of each record in a table. It ensures that each row can be uniquely identified and accessed. It is a column or a set of multiple columns can be defined as a primary key, where a uniqueness of a row of a record is defined. So what are the different purpose of a primary key? First, as we said, uniqueness. It identifies the uniqueness of a record. Second, it is also used for indexing. So whenever we define an indexing on a primary key, it by default create and cluster index on a primary key, and it helps to retrieve or a search operation to be done faster on that column. Third is a relationship. So primary key helps us to define a relationship between a parent table and a child table. So we will see the relationship in the upcoming slide in more detail. So if you see over here, we have two products with the same name, but we have two different ID. So this two ID is a primary key of the product table, which bifurcate the record laptop into two different rows. You can also see there are two different attribute of a product, which is color. One is black and one is silver. So primary key helps us to uniquely identify a product or a record in a given table. You can have all the values a common, but you need to have a different primary key. So next thing is a foreign key. So as we said, primary key and foreign key are very essential element of a relational database. Foreign key is nothing but a column or a set of column of a table which is referred to a primary key column of another table. So what is the purpose of it? It helps to provide a data integrity. It helps to do the data normalization. It also helps to provide a relationship. So, for example, here if you see a foreign key is a product ID, which is referring to the primary key of a product table where a product ID 101 is purchased by a customer 1, while a product ID 102 is purchased by a customer ID 2. So it helps us to identify a record from a primary key. So refer it refers the record in the primary key table. Let us see some of the important concept with respect to a relational database. So, first of all, how does they work together? It is due to the data organization. So, since the relational database is a structured form of data type which has been expressed in rows and columns, it helps to relate one data to another data of a table. Secondly, it helps in querying the data faster. Since we can define the relationship, we can query the data from two different objects and combine the result in the single query. Relationship. Again, relationship helps us to relate the attribute of one table to a attribute of a different table. Now, let us take a simple example over here of a relational database. So, we have three different tables. One is a customer table. Second is a product table. And third is a order table. Now, as we were discussing on the examples, if we want to retrieve the data of one particular customer who has done the purchase, we can write a query. So just keep this in mind that we have three tables: customer, product, and order. And what we want to achieve is we want to get the purchase or the orders of John Doe. So how do you write a query? So here is an example. So first, what we will do is select orders. From order table, we will take the order ID and order date. From product table, we will take the product name. From order table, we will take the quantity and the total price. So how we are going to join them? So first of all, we need to join the order table with the customer table. So if you go back a little bit, so customer ID is joined, sorry, customer ID over here is joined to customer ID over here. Similarly, product ID from this order table is joined with the product ID of a parent table from where it is referred. So I will just come back to the query. We are joining order table with a customer table on customer ID from both the tables. Similarly, we are joining product table on product ID from both the table. Now, if we execute till this statement, we will get orders from all the customers. Whereas we need to pull the order only for John Doe. So, in order to do that, what we need to do is we need to filter out based on the customer first name and last name. So once we do that, we will get the data exactly only for John Doe for a particular order he has placed. So let us see some of the other important aspect of relational database. So first, we will see the one-to-one relationship. So what do you mean by one-to-one relationship? So one-to-one relationship occurs when a single record in a table is associated with a single record to another table. So for example, employee may have his address stored in a different table. So we can have two different tables. Employee, main employee table, where all primary attributes of the employee are stored, like name and last name or employee ID, and the detailed version of an employee table, where all the non-mandatory information, like address might not be mandatory. So we don't have to store over here. Whenever we have that value, then only we have to store. So this will helps us to use optimum usage of a space. Now, similarly, if we see the address, you can have multiple address or employee can have multiple address. If we store the address in the same particular, table, it will have a redundant data. So one-to-one relationship helps us to overcome this redundant data and split the data into two different tables by referring a key objects, a key column, which is employee ID over here. Now, so this is first type of relationship in the relational database. Second is one-to-many. So one-to-many is a relationship which occurs when single record of a table is associated with a multiple record in another table. So each record in one table have multiple corresponding record in, in another table, which is one to many. So one row is associated with multiple row to the different tables. So let us see an example. So here we have an department ID, department name, and we the department ID is referred to the employee table. Now, if we want to relate these two tables, what we can derive from this data is Alice Brown and Carol Green are from department 1, which is are from HR department, whereas Bob White is the only person in an IT department. So this denotes the one-to-many relationship in the relational database. Now let us see the third type and the last type of relationship in the relational database, which is one-to-many. So in this particular case, what happens is multiple record of one table are referred to a multiple record to a different table. Now, this is little confusing, right? So how can you achieve this kind of relationship? If we have primary key and foreign key, or foreign key or primary key, in either of the way, it can only support one to many or many to one, right? So, in order to overcome this challenge, what we can do is we can derive a third table. Okay. So, in this particular example, what we are going to do is we are seeing two different tables, which is student table and course table, which are interrelated. But how it is interrelated? With this third table, which is also called as a junction table, I would say, and an intermediate table. So what does it do? If you see the data, it means that student 1, which is Emma, Emma has registered for two courses. One is 201 and 202, which is website development and database system. Whereas Liam is a student who has enrolled for only one course, which is database management or database system. So in this way, you can overcome the one to many or many to one relationship, and you can build a many to many relationship of any relational object. So this helps us to understand the relationship in the relational database. So to conclude for today, what we have seen is a significance of data integrity and scalability that we have seen, why relational database is designed to ensure the data accuracy and integrity through constraint and normalization. They offer scalability to accommodate growing size of a data as per the industry or enterprise need. Our relational database is used across multiple industry that we have seen. We have seen how the structured data organizations takes place, how the tables, rows, and columns are organized. That we have seen. We have also seen the role of a key. So, what is the role of primary key? What is the role of foreign key? How can we achieve relationship by using them? Right? We have also seen the understanding of relationship in relational database, which is one to many to one, and one to one, and one to many, and many to many. So, here are some quick references where you can understand a different database system concept. Some books are referred to build this particular slide. You can get it from here as well. You can also go through some of the articles which can help you to understand the relational databases and also some of the core concepts. So, we are going to cover the, the upcoming sessions with in-depth knowledge of these topics. So please stay tuned so that you can get information on SQL Basic. So if you have any questions or if you have any comment, what you can do, you can send us on inquiry at skillsacademy.com, or you can also comment your inquiries. Thank you. I will try to answer as soon as possible. Thank you for joining today's session. Hope you like it and see you in the next class.